Hello, Bill Parish here from GTT Audio, and welcome to the channel today. Today we're going to do something a little different. As you can see, I'm not sitting at my desk with the records behind me. I'm in one of the demo rooms, and we're going to bounce around to a couple different rooms. Because the one thing that I wanted to talk about today is preamplifiers. And I'm going to showcase some AudioNet preamplifiers who make some of the very best, if not the best, preamplifiers on the market today. I find that they're absolutely incredible. Now there's a whole slew of audiophiles out there who feel that there's no need for a preamplifier. They go direct. And I understand the concept. Get rid of another box with a lot of circuitry, an extra set of cables. You can certainly save money that way. But, you know, it's going to be shortest path is best. So, the shortest signals. So if you get rid of that box, you get rid of those cables, it's going to sound better. Not always. I mean, if you've got a crappy preamplifier, of course it's going to. If you have some subpar interconnects, of course it's going to. But if you're using something that's top-notch, I feel that going through a preamplifier ends up working the best. At least the way that I listen. It's going to bring the symphony in the room. It's going direct, it's always a little etched. You don't get more detail, but there's highlights on detail. There's usually, so many times, it's not dynamic. You lose dynamics. I don't care what a DAC manufacturer tells you. Going direct, you lose dynamics versus a very, very, very good preamplifier. Now, we're the Mola Mola importer. We're selling a ton of Mola Mola Tambaqui DACs. We sell a lot of preamplifiers too. I'll bring that up for another. I'm going to do an episode on the Mola Mola preamplifier called the Makua all by itself. It's that good. It needs that type of attention. So I'm going to do a special episode on that. But these DACs, I call it my popcorn product. We're selling them like popcorn. It is the hottest DAC in the market right now. Getting them is the hardest thing to do. If you get the opportunity to buy one, snatch it up when they're in stock because they are phenomenal. So all over the web page it says digital is good as analog. They're talking about their volume control. They probably have the best, what they consider a perfect digital volume control. And it's very good. It's probably the best way to go direct. Still, I prefer going through the Makua preamplifier. And then people are like, oh my God, you mean I gotta buy, another $11,000 or $12,000 preamplifier? And no, you don't have to, but you can if you want the very best. It really depends on what you're going for. We all like to fool ourselves, but you're not going to go out there and get, I don't know, but you get a lot of what you pay for. I was going to use an analogy, but I figured I better not. But I'll tell you, going through, in that case, the Makua versus the Tambaqui Direct, I prefer the Makua. Bruno Putzis, who developed it, prefers the Tambaqui. But he likes to listen like he's sitting at the recording, at the studio board, at the recording board. I like to listen like I'm in a concert hall. So there are some preferences there. But let's get back to, like I said, AudioNet preamplifiers that I think are, if not the best, some of the very best in the industry. And I think their top two are without compare. I would declare them the best in the industry. You know, I would say AudioNet has spot 1 and spot 2. First of all, though, their most affordable product, which is the Pre-1 G3. Or is it a Pre-1? Yes, Pre-1 G3. These G's get us all confused. People call me and ask, oh, I'm interested in the G2. What's a G2? Because it stands for Generation 2, but Orlick sells their products in a G2 line. AudioNet, like this is a EPS G2, a power supply. That's a G2, and this is a G3. So it's really the stuff that's at the beginning, the EPS, the Pre-1, that's more important when you're referring to it than the latter part, the G2, because there's a dozen products in here that are G2s, Generation 2s. So the Pre-1 G3, under 10K, I think it's 8,100 here in the US. This product it's phenomenal. It's a pure analog product, meaning it's strictly a preamplifier. But, and so it does, it switches, it's got an analog volume control, it has home theater throughput at any input, you program it. Obviously it comes with a remote. It has a headphone jack on the back. Let me turn this thing around here. Right here it's got a headphone jack. Works really good. And you can configure it to have headphone only or have your outputs here. You've got 2 sets of RCAs, a set of XLR outputs. You've got an extra grounding post. And then you have this little connector here that looks kind of weird for a normal preamplifier or line stage. And what this is a DC input. And what this is an external power supply. You do not need this external power supply, but when you do, this takes this preamplifier and what I call it supercharges it. Tonality improves, dynamics improve, space improves. It just gets bigger. It's amazing when you add this box on what it does to this box. And then it disconnects the power supplies in this box except for the logic, the electronic controls, the display, that then gets powered through a power cord on this unit, but that can be a very cheap stock power cord, and then put your best one on that. You could take it a step further. You can forget about this guy and go with this big power supply, the EPX. Everything I said this does 3 times. So bigger, deeper, higher, dynamics, attack, speed. It does it all better. And you don't lose anything here. So you can buy this and say a year later, 6 months later, a month later, buy this, or you can buy this. You can only use one of these. But if you buy this and then a year later you want to buy this, we'll take this in on trade. In fact, we've got quite a few of these pre-owned because we have fellows that end up going to this. And they never lose their original investment. So this is a very smart line stage, very smart way of doing it. AudioNet is really second to none as far as specs are concerned. But this thing, bandwidth, DC, which is 0 hertz, out to 1 million, or out to 1 meg. That's the bandwidth on this thing. Output impedance. What can really drive those cables? We're talking 24 ohms. And when we say 24 ohms, really anything under 100 ohms is phenomenal. And most people, most manufacturers that are getting in the, like this, 24 ohms, when you're getting under 30 ohms, under 50 ohms, most of them are correcting for that, saying, okay, well, we need to put a little piece of circuit in there to make sure that we have a very strong backbone, a strong output impedance, low output impedance. Well, AudioNet's claim the fame because it's real. It's 24 ohms real, not corrected for, but real. That means the entire circuit, that's the impedance of the circuit. That's a natural, uncorrected output impedance. So I just think it's incredible. So then the next step up, so essentially you've got, I just showed you 3 preamplifiers. You've got your base unit. You've got your base unit with the EPS-G2, or the base unit, I call it the base unit, the Pre-1G3, with an EPX. So 3 preamps. 1, 2, 3. That's smart, fellas. That is really smart. And if you're doing all that, you're not losing any money in the upgrade path. Next we have the DNP, the Digital Network Preamplifier. Oh my God, I said digital. Digital. Well, I contend if you're going to go with a DAC direct, the best way is get a preamplifier with a really good DAC in it. And that's what this has. This is a D to A, this is a line stage. It can be a full function preamp by adding a phono stage. Oh, by the way, you can add a phono stage up here as well. You can, internally I'm talking about. This has a DAC in it. This has an FM tuner in it. This has a streamer in it. You can plug a USB stick right in the back of this and start playing. Or, it'll do JRiver. It's a DNLA server. I wish it were Rune. Maybe they'll upgrade it one day. It does out to single bit DSD. DSD64, PCM up to 192. It comes with an app. It's got internet radio. It also has room correction in it, so you can measure your room and implement the corrections in there. So it's got a digital EQ in it, and what I think is really cool as well is it's got it's called a 2.2 line stage or preamplifier. 2.2. So you've got your 2 main speakers, 2 main channels, and then if you want to add 2 subwoofers, it's got some bass outputs. So you could add 2 subwoofers, and now you can run those main towers or the main speakers in full analog, and you can digitally correct the subwoofers. You can digitally move the distance, do digital delays, so you can distance where those subs are placed in the room. You can fine-tune the frequencies. You can, if you want to develop a subsat system, you can apply different crossovers for high pass and low pass. If there was ever, we hear of a Swiss Army knife, and if there was ever a German Army knife in the preamplifier world, this guy is it. It can do everything. It's essentially the EPS G3. Over there on that side, that's their DAC, a streaming DAC. That is the digital network client, the DNC. Essentially, those 2 pieces combined into this with what I would consider the EPS. So you take those three pieces, put it into a single chassis. It's all that and it's more. Also has a headphone jack on it. Now this, if we want to supercharge it, sounds phenomenal out of the box. But if you want to take this and really expand upon it, no, you cannot use the EPS. Remember, I said I believe it's already in there, that type of power. Well, I've turned it on accidentally. But you can add the EPX. And when you add that EPX, you get amazing sound. Really, really, truly spectacular. And again, you get everything that I detailed it is. You know, it's your analog setup. It can have a phono stage input. It's your DAC. It is all in one. You take this, add a set of amplifiers or powered speakers, and you've got a system. Again, bandwidth out to 1 million or 1 meg. Again, that 24 output impedance. One of the best slew rates in the industry. The rise time, the start-stop, what really controls those amplifiers. It's all there. So that's these two. Now let's move to another room. And now we're up in my studio. And I'll tell you about some preamps up here. But first, for those wondering, Linda Ronstadt from 1968. Boy, she was amazing. In any case, now that we got that out of the way, back to AudioNet and their preamplifiers. So this is a preamplifier that I took around, that I welcome many, many line stages to come in here and challenge this and see really, truly what was the best line stage out there today, because I wanted to carry it. Again, I feel that line stages or preamplifiers are essential. Well, this is it, the Pre-G2. In my opinion, I will put this against any preamplifier on the market, regardless of cost. This thing, I've compared it to $65,000 Swiss pieces. All the American pieces. It is neutral. It is explosively dynamic. It is full-bodied. It controls and gives you resolution in the bottom end unlike anything else I've ever heard. And it has especially, I mean, it works with anything, with any type of amplifiers, but especially paired with AudioNet's amplifiers, whether it be the amp 1, the amp, the max, the Heisenberg. This thing is truly, truly world class. Now they upped the game. They took the impedance in here in the circuit, again real, not corrected, 22 ohms this time. And bandwidth, they doubled the bandwidth out to 2 meg or 2 million hertz. No option for external power supplies. What they knew, they incorporated into this unit. So it's already got an EPX or more built into it. It doesn't need one. There's no option for that. There's no option for a phono stage card in this. There's no option for a phono jack, for a headphone. This is a pure line stage. The best AudioNet knew how to build at the time they built it. Absolutely phenomenal. And while we're up here, I need to tell you about a phono stage as well. They're PAM. They're PAM G2, which means generation 2. Oh my God. Find me a better solid state phono stage, and I'll be all over it. But I don't know of one. This is to analog like Mola Mola is the digital popcorn product. I've sold a ton of these things, and most of the time with an EPX. So the PAM G2 is really cool. You can get a PAM G2. You can get a PAM G2 with an EPS G2, or you can get a PAM G2 with an EPX. And then I have my friends at Kabbalah Sosna build me an umbilical cable, DC umbilical cable, to go between the two. The best of the best of the best, let me tell you. It is truly, truly a statement phono stage at a fraction of the price. And this is with what this competes with, I mean, it's a world-class product, and it's a fraction of the price of the stuff that it is out there competing with. So when I said AudioNet makes some very special preamplifiers, I meant it. I have one more thing in store for you today. So let's go take a look. Well, I have saved the best for last. This doesn't look like anything else that I've showed you today, but it's still an AudioNet through and through. It's the AudioNet Stern, part of what AudioNet considers their lighthouse project, their statement project. This is their all-out assault. So this thing is this massive line stage. Strictly a line stage. It is filled completely inside with parts. I'll pop a photo up on the screen. You can see it. It's got three RCA outs, 2 XLR outs, couple of balanced inputs, 4 or 5 single-ended inputs. It's called the AudioNet Stern, part of the Scientist series. This thing, I don't know if you can pick it up in the camera, and because it's connected, I don't want to spin it. But it's got these lines on top, these beautiful lines and aesthetic, and it's these bars, and in the back of them, there's machined, it's got to be 200 holes in each line, each individually machined. They have a worldwide patent on this floating panel design. I can look in there and I could see the circuit, but nowhere, anywhere, do I see any screws. And it's literally floating panels internally bolted to a frame, in which that frame, all the components are bolted to, isolated by rubber grommets. They've really upped the game in this. So I said the Pre-G2 is the best preamplifier line stage I had ever heard. Absolutely 100% the truth until the Stern came out. And it rocked my world. It turned the audio industry, and still is, upside down. This is the end-all be-all. This is the target for everybody. The AudioNet Stern. There's nothing like it. They've upped the bandwidth to 2.2 megahertz. Still kept the natural output impedance at 22 ohms. That's not corrected. I make a big point of that. All the boards are galvanetically isolated through optocouplers. You got a double ball bearing volume control that is optically coupled to an analog resistor network. It's pure analog all the way through. What this does, words cannot express. When I talked to Thomas Gessler a year after they had been working on it, AudioNet had been working on the Stern for a couple of years, and the Heisenbergs. We'll do an amplifier report at some point too this year. But they'd been working on this stuff for 2 years already. And Thomas told me, so this up the Pre-Chi 2 game, and the Heisenbergs up the Max game. Thomas told me that the biggest improvements they were able to find was in the preamplifier. They discovered things that they could do in a preamplifier, and in my opinion, they already had the best preamplifier. And they took it to a level that's truly unbelievable. So I've waxed on about all these components. Now there's really, I mean, I can go on and on and on about this. But the real proof is in the pudding, and everyone should make it their point to hear an AudioNet Stern. But I've gone on and on and on for this entire episode about these units, yet there's some people that still believe that they're not necessary in an audio chain. I mean, it is your torque in an engine. It is your steering wheel in a car. It's the heartbeat. It's the control center. All these, the Planck, which is AudioNet CD player, the Tambaki, which is the DAC, the PAM G2, the AudioNet's phono stage, the Kronos's phono stage. All this connects to the preamplifier, to the Stern. And from the Stern, it sends it downstream to the Heisenbergs. One last thing. I talked about the aesthetics a little bit. This is sitting in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. That's how beautiful it is. There's no video. There's no photo, even though you should go to AudioNet's website and look at the photos. But there's no video. There's no photos that can come anywhere close to representing this. It's like I went to the Masters and walked that course. There's nothing on TV that can show you the elevation until you're there. I mean, that course is hilly, let me tell you. And there's not, and those greens, but you don't see that on Sunday when you're watching the Masters. Well, it's like this. You cannot tell the beauty of this line stage until you see it in person. And no spec in the world, and I'm not afraid of the specs, by all means, go and read them. They have the best specs in the industry. But there's no spec that can tell you what this thing sounds like. Everything else, there's a lot, all these other brands probably make some very good line stages, but it's no AudioNet Stern. With that, we'll call it an episode. I appreciate you tuning in. Please like it, share it, subscribe, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.